Good afternoon, Los Angeles, and thank you for joining us here today. This has been a long year, and we welcome that hope that we feel in a way we haven't for nearly 12 months. And the good news that is coming from Washington, D.C. with the new relationship that we have with the new administration and the work that Congress is doing to make sure that Americans get what we need to recover from and to rebuild from this pandemic. I want to start by acknowledging my two partners who are here behind me today, our Rla Metro CEO, Phil Washington, and our LA Department of Transportation General Manager, Seleta Reynolds, who's also hosting us. As you can see, we're a city always working. There we go. Phil and Seleta have stood with us through thick and thin. They have led in one of the toughest years their workforce, frontline women and men who have put themselves out there to continue serving our public during this dangerous pandemic. And I can't start with the celebration without first commemorating that it's come at a cost of lives no longer with us from LA Metro workers and contractors, of city workers that we've lost as well. This war hasn't been without casualties, but it has been fought by brave men and women who stood up to say that LA is something worth fighting for, working for, and keeping going. In the midst of the darkest moments, these two leaders have been bright lights, and I thank them. And we're here collectively to celebrate that hope on the horizon that isn't just some emotion that we're feeling, but we can materially feel it, see it these days because of the passage of the American Rescue Plan. I said for a year, don't expect the cavalry to come. And that's because looking at things coming out of Washington, D.C., we learned too many times we'd have to go on our own when it came to testing, when it came to helping one another with the economic assistance that we needed. Too many people were left behind. But now, with a new administration, with the action taken by this Congress, we're celebrating a transformative investment. Overall, we don't know the exact amount of money that will come to residents of and programs in LA County, but I know it's well north of $30 billion. But one of the most important direct allocations in that is $1.6 billion in the American Rescue Plan that will be injected straight into our region's transit networks. Dollars that will help get people back to work, keep our systems running at full strength again. And it's hard to overstate what this money means for Los Angeles. It means more buses on the streets, it means more trains on the tracks, it means more frequent and reliable service for our customers, and more Angelenos getting to where they need to go, to work, to an appointment, maybe even to get their vaccine. And crucially, it means Metro will be able to return to our pre-pandemic service by this September, a full year earlier than we initially projected. This is amazing news for Angelenos. And from the first moments of this pandemic, it's our transit workers who've been putting their lives on the line every single day, whether it's showing up in a maintenance shop or driving and operating a bus or train. It helped Los Angeles maintain the highest percentage of ridership of any big city in America on our transit systems. This system is resilient because our people are resilient, but it hasn't been easy. And even with the highest percentage, our ridership has dropped in half. Revenues have plummeted. And we've worked to meet our most urgent and immediate needs. For a nurse who needed to show up for his shift, we didn't have the excuse of saying, sorry, revenues are down. For a critical worker stocking the shelves in a grocery store without a car, we didn't have the luxury of saying, we're cutting back. We have all worked so hard because of our worry that our long-term transportation goals could take a serious hit. So for a year, we lobbied tirelessly, and both of these advocates behind me. We said this is not a reality we can accept here in Los Angeles, with too much at stake and too much on the line. Simply put, the road to a just and equitable recovery runs through public transportation across this country and here in Los Angeles. We worked to sustain services during the crisis, and we never, though during that, stopped looking beyond the crisis. We never stopped lobbying for that help, fighting for the funds we needed, advocating for long-term and nation-leading initiatives from our sustainability work. You can see electric buses here behind me that both LA DOT and Metro are purchasing, whether it was our work to make sure that we are continuing to move forward with a more sustainable workforce. We have continued, and President Biden has delivered, giving us the resources necessary to keep our transportation vision on track. With federal dollars, we can keep moving full steam ahead towards our destination. We can keep delivering access and equity to our most vulnerable. We can keep implementing the next-gen bus plan with a brand new station on the Silver J line and new bus lanes coming on some of our most traveled corridors that our city has aggressively moved forward during the pandemic on. We can keep up our work on the Purple Line extension along Wilshire Boulevard, bringing world-class transit to our densest urban corridor. Deliver the regional connector right here, footsteps from us in downtown, so that anyone can hop on in East LA and ride all the way to the ocean. With these funds, we can keep creating jobs and building careers, and driving growth through Measure M, the largest local transportation measure ever passed in U.S. history, ×2. And we'll keep paving our way towards our marquee goal of 28 by 28, when we welcome the globe to the Olympic and Paralympic Games and they see our world-class transit system that will long last after they are gone, interconnecting and making more equitable a system for 19 million souls who call this region, now the third largest metropolitan economy in the world, home. That's what we're doing here in LA, and that's what we can do when we have a strong and committed partner in the federal government. Here we invest boldly and we imagine broadly. We plan far beyond today or tomorrow. We see transportation not just as a way to get our people from place to place, but a way to bring our economy into a strong and resilient future. And today that future is closer than ever, and we will get there together. So with that, let me introduce the CEO of Rla Metro, a group I'm proud to be chair of, but he has been one of the finest appointed officials I've ever worked with. He announced his retirement at the end of his time here. He doesn't like that word, just retirement from Metro, I want to be clear, of having fulfilled the contract and set in motion not only generation-changing work, but city-changing work that he will leave behind. And whether he calls LA home or not, he will always be an Angelino, my friend and partner, Metro CEO Phil Washington.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. It's so great to be here. As the mayor just alluded to, this money, this American Rescue Plan funding will help us do so many things. I so appreciate the leadership of our mayor, of our congressional delegation, of our governor in lobbying for this lifeline that we absolutely needed. The mayor talked about how we will be able to restore all of our service, 7 million hours by September, and we look forward to that. The opportunity to continue purchasing electric buses. In this bill as well is what we advocated for to continue our capital projects. And so there's $277 million that will be coming to us through this bill for those capital projects. And so we're very, very happy for that. I think in the midst of this pandemic, even with the deaths and even with the sickness, there are some silver linings, and that is the American Rescue Plan. That is our ability to put service out on the street. That is our ability to continue these great projects. And it's actually our ability to understand the trials and tribulations of citizens right here in LA County. As we move through and as we think about these many initiatives that we are working, we will be able to inject new money into that. So let me just say, and let me just reinforce what the mayor was saying. This is a lifeline. This is a lifeline by this administration that we are very, very proud of, and we will use the money wisely as we move forward to restore transit in the Southern California region. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and I'll keep my mask on so you don't have to get sprayed twice. Next, I want to introduce the General Manager of Los Angeles Department of Transportation, Sleda Reynolds. By the way, we follow this stuff closely. Metro spent out everything we got last year in the Lifeline. We have 100%, while others sometimes have an excess, we do not. One of the things Metro does is funds our municipal operators as well with assistance for things like our dash buses. And this Department of Transportation has spent out 100% of what's been put forward. So we are using this money. To anybody in DC who thinks this is excess, it is nothing more than a lifeline. And thank you for your leadership, Seleta, in keeping the buses going and pioneering the way for free transit and doing so much more. Seleta Reynolds.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to shout out our partners, MV, LADOT Transit, the transit operators, the supervisors, the inspectors, the mechanics, who have kept really the backbone of our system running. We did lose a lot of ridership, but I want to just shout out the Pico Union line in particular, continued to see tremendous numbers of people who needed to use it to get to work, to connect to their families, to get to their jobs, education, and I just want to stop and reflect that one of the last press conferences that we did was actually in this same yard, designed by the Bureau of Engineering to celebrate the purchase of 155 electric buses. And that same day, back in February of last year, we went over to the lawn on City Hall. We celebrated LADOT's 40th anniversary. But you know, 40 is the new 30, and we look amazing for our age. But we had no idea what lay in front of us, what was coming our way. And we've been tested like probably no other time in our 40 years. And I feel privileged to serve under the leadership of Mayor Garcetti and alongside the tremendous leadership of Phil Washington, because we were able to face a year that seemed like it would never end, a year that we will never forget, even if we might like to, because of the leadership of tremendous civil servants like the ones at LADOT and at Rla Metro. Early on, we made transit free. We put masks on our buses. We had traffic officers, instead of directing traffic at Lakers games, showing up at testing sites and vaccine sites, serving an unbelievable 88,000 hours of directing traffic last year, really unprecedented. We repurposed our streets. We built 60 miles of bike lanes. We built transit-only lanes through a partnership with Metro. We repurposed parking spaces to allow restaurants to be able to welcome customers back. Probably the easiest parking repurposing I've done in over 20 years of work. And I just think that goes to show that when we were tested, we showed up for this city, and the men and women who serve this city bring a heart and a passion to it. And their crisis response was really about showing that transportation can be a pathway to mobility justice, to climate justice, to racial justice, because that is the role that it plays in the region. This down payment on more of that infrastructure that's coming to Los Angeles, we are so deeply grateful for the recognition of the role that mobility plays, the role that transportation plays, and the ways that it showed up in the crisis response has tested us and taught us lessons that we stand ready to apply, to build back better, to build back faster, because we know that transportation infrastructure, pound for pound, delivers more jobs than almost any other kind of investment you could make in the city of Los Angeles. So we are grateful for the investment that's coming. We are excited to advocate for the investment that we want to follow it, and we're just really grateful. Thank you.
I thanked President Biden. Of course, I want to thank also Vice President Kamala Harris, but I also want to thank Mayor Pete, who's now Secretary Pete, who I know Phil closely advised in his transition. Certainly, I've had great conversations about some of the excitement that we're doing, but his fingerprints in getting this here as well. I want to thank him. We can do Spanish for now? Okay, 1 second, then we'll go to the pool of questions real quick. Just a couple words in Spanish, don't worry, won't be as long. Hoy celebramos una inversión transformadora para Los Ángeles, 1.6 mil millones de dólares del plan de rescate estadounidense y directamente destinados a nuestras redes de transporte pública. Este dinero significa que habrá más autobuses en las calles y más trenes en las vías, y que el metro podrá volver con el Departamento de Transporte de la Ciudad de Los Ángeles al servicio anterior a la pandemia en septiembre, un año antes de lo previsto inicialmente. El camino hacia una recuperación justa, equitativa y ecológica pasa directamente por nuestras inversiones en transporte. Por eso nunca dejamos de presionar para obtener ayuda federal. Y el presidente Biden respondió. Gracias a nuestro presidente por su acción y su amor, no solamente por Los Ángeles, pero por la gente de los Estados Unidos, dándonos los recursos necesarios para mantener en marcha nuestra visión para el transporte. Con estos fondos federales podemos seguir avanzando a toda velocidad hacia nuestro destino. Podemos seguir ofreciendo acceso y equidad a nuestros residentes más vulnerables y seguir creando empleos, construyendo carreras e impulsando el crecimiento para todos quienes viven aquí. Gracias. And as our pool reporter Dakota Smith comes up, I also want to wish every worker here, you might not know it's International Transit Workers Day in the world, celebrating the first transit lines ever in the 17th century in Paris, when some horse-drawn carriages were offered and set routes to the public. So this is your day. Let's give a round of applause to all of our transit workers. It's your day. We're happy to take questions.
Sure. Anyone can answer this question.
Sure.
But can you explain this $277 million for capital projects? I understand that to be the regional connector and the West Side subway. What does that money do? Does it mean it opens up faster, or what?
Well, keep in mind that we're funding these projects through sales tax. And so our sales tax declined, obviously, during the pandemic. So this will help us keep those projects on track and even accelerate them a bit as well.
Accelerate meaning it might open sooner?
Could be. We'll have to see. But, on the Purple Line, we were able to actually accelerate construction because there was less traffic. So we did that last spring, with the help of the city of Beverly Hills as well, and our contractor. So we will be able to, even though we had a decline in sales tax, that will go to keeping those projects going.
Okay, and then while you're here also, this money you said will be used to restore service to 7 million hours by September.
Yes.
Was the target December earlier that Metro was looking at to restore service cut during the pandemic, or what was the original goal?
The original goal was actually December of this year. We moved it up per a motion by our board. So we moved that up to September.
Okay, so this will move up the date that these hours are restored.
That's correct.
Service are restored.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a question for the mayor on a different.
And initially, just on that one real quick, initially
Sure.
it was going to be a year. It was September of 2022. Then staff suggested December of 2021, and then we moved that to September with this.
Okay. And is there anything else you can say about the restoration of the bus service, which obviously has a lot more meaning in the last year?
Yeah. Sure. Look, I think that buses are the workhorses of the system. It's if you're lucky enough to live near a train or get to a train, they're remarkably efficient. We need to continue to invest in them. But I think we've changed this from a zero-sum game of, if you're investing in rail, you're taking away from buses. And we said it shouldn't come at the expense of buses. And any of the other things we're doing, even capital projects, can't come at the expense of restoring this. So initially, there were some proposals, let's keep capital projects going. This new infusion, as was just mentioned, keeps the capital projects going in the right schedule, maybe even early. And that allows us to restore that service. And that was something the board felt very strongly about. And I know a lot of people said, well, if only 50%, or let's say in September it's only 70% or something, or 75% of people are riding, why would we want to have 100% of those hours? For somebody waiting who goes from 20 minutes to 40 minutes, that means all the difference in her life. If she's going across town to work as a housekeeper, or somebody who's working as a construction worker, this was very important to us, so it'll be restored at full service. And hopefully we'll get that 100% plus back.
Okay, great. And then there is a question, if you can respond
Sure.
to the recent report by Mr. Chaleff regarding the LAPD's response to last year's protests.
Yeah, Mr. Chaleff's report is very important, and I'm looking forward to the two other reports, one which will come from the department and one from an independent national foundation that has given us really good reports in the past as well, that will include things like some of the body-worn footage from the days that the protests were here for racial justice. Look, there was good news and there was very important changes that need to be made. The good news highlighted, I think, how many officers and how many people inside this department were able to preserve people's free speech rights, were able to keep peace. And I look back and see, the last two times we had uprisings in the city, people died and nobody died. And I think that's part of the reason that the investment's been made in past in training and other things did their job. On the other hand, there's a lot of things that are still missing and have to be changed. We have to do much better job of giving, especially with new officers, the sort of training that can help them in those situations. We saw too many incidents where it wasn't just about preserving people's right to speech in a very dynamic environment. But I think we need to take those to heart. We need to implement those policies. We need to hold folks accountable where we can, and also not just give rank and file on the front lines, but give training to those commanders who are making those decisions. And I witnessed that firsthand when I was with the chief of police. We saw some things that were going down. I said, get out of City Hall, go there and fix it. He did, but obviously we saw things that need to change in terms of us improving relentlessly this department, our policies, and the ways that we can preserve people's free speech rights and at the same time ensure public safety.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Happy International Transit Workers Day. Thanks, everybody.